What if I tell you that I have a fast, easy, and visual way for you to work with your layouts and then create your simulations? Yes, we've got process modeling that could do that. So today we are going to talk about process modeling, and I'll help you learn a little bit about what process modeling is in terms of manufacturing simulation context, how does it actually work, and where does product assemblies fit into it. I'll also build some examples for you to help you understand the whole topic a bit better. Before I start talking about process modeling, let's talk about what are the important elements of any layout. Or let's just say, what elements do you need before you can start building your layout? Yes, you need the floor plan. Yes, you also need 3D models. You also definitely need a simulation software. In my opinion, the three elements that you must need and must be clear about before you start building your simulations are PPF, products, processes, flows. Let's talk about what they are first. Although they are very self-explanatory terms, but product is any item or entity that goes through a certain process in a layout. Process is a set of statements that assign certain behavior to a product. So for example, a product goes into a machine and comes out differently. It's a process that assigns that behavior to that product. And a flow is a sequence of processes that a product follows in a layout during simulation. So a product goes through machine 1, machine 2, machine 3. That sequence of process is a flow. Okay, now that we know about these three elements, process modeling helps you to manage these elements visually and to help you build your simulations with easier, faster, and simpler workflows. So how does process modeling actually work? It is a 5-step process starting from building the static layout design. So you just bring in all the 3D elements together, plug and play them, but they don't really simulate. It's a static layout design. Then comes the process modeling part where you define products, processes, flows, and then you run the simulation to make sure all the systems work together in a virtual environment. So I will go through each of these steps while building a basic example together with you. So let's just bring in the software and start building that example. Okay, so here we have the Visual Component software open. Let's click this floor plan here, and then let's bring in the medium turning machine. Let's bring it there. Let's change the view a little bit so we can see it better. I think this looks fine here. What else do we need? We need some components. So let's start with conveyor. Let's bring that here next to the machine, right there. And then we need a few more of them. So let's bring this one, but let's change the angle of this. We want to build the whole setup in this small square. Let's change the angle to -90. I think this works fine. Let's put it, yeah, exactly there. And then let's put the control enclosure in. Now this is not going to do much in simulation, but it looks nicer in a smaller cell. So it's going to be a static component. What else do we need? Let's put the robot transport controller. Now I will define the robot controllers or transport controllers for you a bit more detail later, but let's use that as a pedestal for the Visual Components robot. Let's now check the reach. Now at the moment it's 1.8, but let's make sure that it reaches all the components, especially the machine and those two conveyors. So let's check the envelope option here. Okay, we see here that it reaches the conveyors well, but the machine is a bit out of reach. So let's relocate the machine a little bit closer to the robot. Now it looks okay, but just to be on the safer side, let's change this reach to 2.5 meters so it reaches all of them easily. And I think now that we don't need this envelope feature, let's disable it. Okay, so what else? We do need, let's bring in the gripper. Let's attach that, snap it right next to that at the end of the robot arm. It's that easy, plug and play. Let's bring in the couple of products in here. So one is the basic cylinder and the other one is the lathe part. Now what we want is that the cylinder goes in, and through the machine, once it's processed, it changes its shape to this lathe part. That is the intention. Let's see if we can build that. What else do we need? Let's bring in some humans here. So let's bring our Anna. Let's place it here. Now she needs a workstation, but also she needs a human transport controller, so let's put that there. A transport controller is basically a switch for different resources, and it assigns certain properties to those resources. That is what it does. So that's why it is important to have there. Let's put this manual workstation. Yeah, that's fine there. And we need another conveyor. After she's done checking the product, she should be able to place it somewhere. So let's put the final inspected component on this conveyor, and then it goes on to the next one here. I think we have the 3D models at least of all of these now. Let's now bring in process modeling flow components. That is the folder that you see here. So feeder is important. We need to assign a product to that feeder that we'll do later. Let's bring in transport nodes. So transport nodes are basically the entry and exit points of the models. So here we have entry point, and then let's snap one to that conveyor, an exit point. We need another one for the last conveyor, so let's bring one more. And then let's bring in the sync process. That's where this simulation basically ends for that product. Okay, so now we have our first stage complete of designing the static layout. Now we need to start defining the process modeling elements. So let's start with the product. Okay, so you see products icon right there. Let's click that. And now we see VCCAN here. Now VCCAN is a default product in case we haven't defined any product. There is one that is by default there. So let's just change it to cylinder. And then let's pick the cylinder from the 3D workspace and define it as a product. This is a very nice feature here. It's quite easy to define your products from 3D workspace. Now we have another product. As I said, we have this lathe component that we want the cylinder to change into. Let's also select that from the 3D workspace. If we got that, our products are defined. Now let's have a look at the processes. Now if we click that processes, we see all the processes inside this layout, from feeder, medium turning, manual process, sync. When we click the medium turning, you see all these statements inside these processes. These are the statements that assign certain behavior to components and also the product. So you see transport in, machine door being opening, changing, all of that, and also some states. Let's change the product type here, because we want the cylinder to change into lathe, so that's what we did just now. And here we have manual process. Now this process, we want it to be basically an inspection process, so let's rename that. This is all fine. The human is going to take 5 seconds to inspect that. All good. Let's define the flow. But oh wait, before we define the flow, I mentioned earlier that we need to assign product to the feeder, and that we haven't done yet. So let's just do that first. We go here, and then you can see product creator. So cylinder, let's assign cylinder to this and click define product. So all good now. Now we are all set to define the flow. We are done with products, we are done with processes. Let's start the flow. So when we click that, we see process flow editor right there. So feeder is the first process. Then the next one is the medium turning. So let's enable the robot that's gonna pick it up from there and then place it on that conveyor. Let's disable the robot, and then to the next transport node. Now human is gonna pick from here. That's what we want. Inspect it on the manual workstation, and then put the product back onto the other conveyor. And from that, it goes to the sync process. So here we go. We've got our flow defined. All simple steps, nothing complicated about it, and all visual. Now that we've all defined everything, let's run the simulation to check everything works. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so the cylinder is being fed to the conveyor. Robot picks it up, puts it into the machine, processes it to the lathe component. That's exactly what we wanted. Now human has to pick it up, inspect it on the manual workstation, and then put it back onto the conveyor. Let's see if that happens fine. It does. So it looks like our simulation is all set. Exactly working the way that we wanted it to be. Let's now see the view without flow, a bit cleaner view of the whole simulation. So you can see here. And then the green dots here that you see on the processes side are basically showing that these process statements are being executed. So these are the green icon. It's nice to see those in real time. Let's just change the speed to 10x to make sure everything works fine in the longer run a little bit. And it does, and you see all these green statuses being changed. So here we go, we've defined all our process modeling elements, defining products, processes, flows, simulation works fine. And now let's see the formats to which the simulation can be shared. So on the top left, we've got the 3D PDF in the simulation mode, which is quite nice. Then on top right, you've got the 2D drawing. Bottom left, you've got this VC Experience file. Now VC Experience is a different software. It's an extension basically that we offer where you can see all your products on your phone, and the other person on the other side don't need to have Visual Component software to see the simulations. So it's quite nice that way. And then on the bottom right, we've got the video in different camera angles. So it looks pretty cool here. All good. And you can export to all these formats in just one click. Okay, so we saw how the process modeling works. We saw all the steps: layout design, defining products, defining processes, defining flows, running the simulation. We even shared the simulation to different formats, but we didn't take into account product assemblies just yet. So what if somebody wants to define assemblies rather than just products? We have a way in the Visual Components now. So you can define product assemblies through process modeling framework, through defining product side, and product editor now has assembly sections in there. So let's go through another example where we have another layout, but this time with product assemblies, and see how assemblies work with process modeling. Alright, so here we have another example and a little bit bigger layout than what we built earlier. So we've got, it looks like it's the same basically operation but in 2 lines, and then it converges at some point. Okay, so let's open the products section again and let's have a look at the assemblies. We open the product type editor and now you see product assemblies in here. You see assemblies subsection. So here is where you can create and manage your assemblies. And here we already have one defined, so it says palette full. Let's expand this. We've got palette underneath, we've got sheet underneath, and we've got cylinders bottom, sheet 2, cylinders top. So these are different steps inside one assembly here. When you go into the all subsection, here you can see all of the products underneath product type editor. So products, assemblies, both of them here. So you can manage them all in one panel. Let's open this assembly editor. Let's see how this looks like. Right, so we've got this assembly. Okay, so we've got a palette, we've got a sheet, we've got cylinders bottom, we've got sheet 2, we've got cylinders top. And if we compare that to the assembly on our left panel, it looks very logical and very simple. So this is how the assembly editor looks like, and this is where you can manage the assemblies. Now let's start clicking different steps and see how it looks like. So if we click palette full, we have all of this palette. If we click palette, then all the other disappear. We only see this step. What if we click the next one? Oh, we got the sheets, and we've got the previous step in a ghosted view. And same goes with the other assemblies sections. So cylinders bottom, cylinders top, and now we see all the ghosted rest of the assembly. But this is basically because we've defined this view for us. There are different views that you can select it from. So we've got 3 at least here. You can show full assembly. So when you're editing and working on a certain step, you can still see the full assembly. There's another way where you only see the selected step and the other steps are ghosted. But let's go with the one that we have, show selected step with ghosted parents. You can see here that for this cylinders bottom, the parents are sheet and palette, so we see all of them as parents. So there are different ways to manage them. If you want to know how to build your assemblies using this assembly editor, we've got some tutorials for you which goes through a step-by-step method to show you how the whole assembly editor panel works and how you can create your own assemblies. Right, so let's go back to our layout. Now that we've seen the assembly, what do we have here? So we have, let's put the processes on. Let's see what kind of processes we have after assemblies is already there. Oh, what's going on in here? Oh, this looks overwhelming. There's a lot of processes in here, but don't worry. Let's just go to flow and let's divide this layout into different sections to help you understand what's going on. It's always good to divide a bigger layout into different steps, smaller steps, and see different flows for different products. That way it's easy to understand what is what. So here we have the flow for the first product, and it looks like there's a feeder, there's a small conveyor, and then there are 3 machines, and these blue colored humans are assigned to these 3 machines and these processes. Now that these processes have same process names, it doesn't matter which product goes to which machine. They are all gonna be processed the same way, and then the humans are gonna drop it here, and then the robot has to pick them up here and hopefully put it on top of an assembly that we've defined earlier. That is what we have for flow. Let's open this loading one. That's the process on top of this conveyor. Here you see that we have get assembly statement. Now this is what I mentioned earlier, that we have a way to define and manage assemblies inside process modeling. So defining was clear, but to manage them in the processes, you need to have statements for that. So here we have one example statement, get assembly. But let's have a look at other statements, what we have inside these processes. Let's drag it here. So these are all the statements that we have, a lot of options, but if we look at the assembly statements, we've got get assembly, check assembly, get assembly property, construct. And you can read the description of them underneath these icons, but we do have all these kind of statements to manage the assemblies inside the process modeling framework. And then for the second flow, well, this is pretty simple, only two processes in here. And then the third one, we've got basically the same process as the first product flow, but different set of machines and different set of people in red color assigned for this. But the process is exactly the same, and the robot is gonna pick it up and then put it on the assembly. And then later we've got the wrapper here, which is gonna wrap the assembly, and the assemblies go ahead. So we've seen all these steps for assemblies being defined already. Let's play the simulation now. Okay, so the pallet and the sheet comes onto the conveyor already as a feed in. Then we've got these products coming onto this conveyor. Humans are processing them through these machines, then placing them back onto this conveyor, and robot picks it up and starts assembling on top of the sheet. So the third step of the assembly is being created here. The first 2 already came from the feeder. And if we go on the other side, it's the same process going on. So basically it's a replication of same process in 2 lines. Okay, so the robot keeps palletizing. I guess 2 more products left. Then on the next process, the robot should pick that sheet up and put it on top of these cylinders. Let's see if it does that. It does. So we've got the assembly going on very well. Then on the last step, we've got these copper products coming in, and robot is palletizing them on top of that sheet. And you can see that the humans are assigned for this kind of cell, so they are picking and placing the operation. Right, so the product goes here. We've got another product coming in. They converge here, then they go through the wrapper where they're wrapped, and then they proceed to the next process. Okay, so the assemblies are wrapped, and this is the whole overview of this layout with the flow. Let's hide this flow and let's have a look at this whole layout without the flow. It's more cleaner that way, and a pretty neat view of how this layout is working. It works the way we want it to be. You can easily see that the assemblies are created and managed nicely in a layout, and basically we just defined the assemblies in the same place where we defined the products earlier. Okay, so let's recap a little bit. We went through process modeling, the definitions, the workflow, and then we also talked about product assemblies in it. We built the simulations, and we also shared the simulations earlier, not for the second part, but it works the same way as we did it with the first. So it's quite clear that process modeling is an easier and fast and quite simple way to do things. Even though the layout looks complicated, but it was quite simple when we broke it down into different parts. Okay, so this is it for today. Hopefully you learned a bit better about process modeling than before you watched this video. If you want to get in touch with us, feel free to contact us through the Get a Demo link in the description. Get in touch with us and get a demo for yourself and build your assemblies using this all method that I showed you. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.